My name is Mark Basu. I'm the Executive Vice President of Greentown Labs, and I just really quickly wanted to say welcome to Greentown Labs, and really glad that folks are here, really glad that we're talking about a huge, important topic, which you're going to hear more about, and the leadership of the city of Somerville and participating in organizing this cool new opportunity to work toward some goals that the city has and ones that we've been helping support the city on as well. Greentown Labs, as many may know, is a community of entrepreneurs that's trying to solve the world's largest energy and environmental challenges. We started nearly 4 years ago with just a handful of companies that were graduating from MIT and other places nearby and needed a place to work on continuing to build their prototypes and build their energy companies. And from there it just grew into a community with now more than 40 companies and more than 75 that we've helped support in these years. And what we do is provide space, resources, expertise, and access to funding and a network to really help move companies forward and to commercialize them. City of Somerville is the reason why we're here in Union Square. We moved here the fall of 2013, and we're able to move into this wonderful 33,000 square foot facility because of funding support and mostly just fantastic leadership and championship from the mayor and the community and Oliver as well. So we're very, very excited to be able to host, to be able to help support, and to be able to continue to work with the city around initiatives that it has to focus on meeting goals that we think are critically important, and that's making cities smarter and more sustainable and reducing and turning them into low carbon places that can thrive and grow well into the centuries ahead. So with that, thanks again, and I'll appreciate the opportunity to be part of it.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thanks for hosting us in this space. I'm Oliver Sellers Garcia, the Director of Sustainability and Environment for the City of Somerville, and we're here tonight in person and online to answer some questions on the contest that we're doing with the MIT Climate CoLab, focusing on atypical ideas for carbon neutrality. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a moment, but I want to let the other folks here at the table introduce themselves.
Thanks, Oliver. Hi, my name is Jamie. I am a contest fellow for our contest, and I'm also an intern at the Office for Sustainability and Environment. So there's been a lot of activity online, and thanks everybody who's contributed proposals so far and also has put questions up for the group. So I'll be reading the questions that come in online tonight, and I also want to encourage you to keep them coming after the event as well. We've had a lot of activity and we want to keep it coming, and we'll be interacting with our participants on a daily basis throughout the next few weeks as we wrap the competition up. Hi everyone, I am Laura Fisher and I'm from the MIT Climate CoLab. So just a little bit about the Climate CoLab and what we're up to. So the Climate CoLab is an online community of over 34,000 people from all over the world who will come together to develop and select proposals on what to do about different challenges related to climate change. So in the past few years, we've run over 40 contests focused on different aspects of the climate change challenge. Everything from how do we decarbonize the energy supply, to reducing emissions in transportation and buildings, to contests that we partner with different organizations and entities to run. So for example, we're really very glad to be working with the City of Somerville on this really unique and interesting contest. And again, very much looking forward to the kinds of innovative results that come about. So one thing I want to say for people who might not be familiar with the Climate CoLab, it's an open contest, which means that any proposal that someone submits onto the platform will be seen by everyone around the world. So you can be a member and you can actually contribute and write proposals and comment and collaborate with people no matter where they are. Or you can not even become a member and just check out and read the proposals and see what's up there. So we encourage everybody to come onto the platform and see what's on there, submit ideas if you have ideas. If they're developed or not, there'll be people from around the world who will work with you and help you develop ideas even further. And also people from the City of Somerville. that will contribute and give ideas as well.
I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview of the contest, and for folks who have seen the website, or for folks who are in the future looking at this on the website, you can scroll down and read some of the things that I'm going to talk about, but I thought we'd give you a little more detail here. So the theme of this contest is, as I mentioned, atypical ideas for carbon neutrality. The mayor of Somerville, Joe Curtatone, set a goal in 2014 that we would plan to make Somerville a carbon neutral city by 2050. And that's a huge goal. And there's going to be a lot of different ways to get there. Once you set a goal like that, pretty much everything is on the table. But we have a tradition in Somerville of doing things differently. Some might say innovatively, but what our mayor often says a lot to us is, you know, give me your abnormal ideas. And that's a word that really means to us, you know, what is atypical? What is something that is not standard? What is an idea that, you know, is an unexpected way of thinking about the problem? And we want to embrace that approach to doing things by trying to work with the CoLab community and folks here in Somerville to come up with some early ideas for how to make deep carbon reductions in, you know, all aspects of urban life. So that's what really brought us to this platform, because we thought it was a terrific idea to have people from around the world bring fresh ideas to Somerville and interact throughout the contest period with people from Somerville who can, you know, say, hey, have you looked at this neighborhood? Or this is my street. And then, you know, someone in Thailand can bring an idea that they have there and really sort of meld a global perspective with a local perspective. So a little bit more about the contest. You know, we have some questions that we will maybe try to anticipate here. So the way we're defining carbon neutrality, just for the purpose of this contest, is really, you know, a net zero release of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in the built-in natural ecosystems inside the borders of Somerville. But we're not looking for one solution that is going to do all of that for us. We're looking for technologies, perhaps policies and regulations, and even other sorts of activities that can have a really substantial impact in different elements of urban life, as I mentioned. So for example, homes and buildings, commuting, food, waste, all of the different ideas that we come out with of this contest will really perhaps be important building blocks for carbon neutrality. Now, in terms of the contest, you know, it's kind of hard to judge unusual ideas, but we've tried to come up with some criteria. We're looking for, you know, ingenuity. Is this something that is new and creative? But, you know, we also want it to be feasible. Is it doable? And if it's not doable now, that doesn't mean it's not a great idea, but help us understand how it could be done and how. What is the impact that it's going to have toward taking us to carbon neutrality? And is it a sustainable idea in the truest sense of the definition? Does it have staying power? Is it something that, you know, a community can embrace for the long term? So we will also be giving prizes in addition to the best prize for, you know, a best technical solution, the most creative, ones that can really help us with cost effectiveness, and also something that is most community-oriented. So that's some of the background on the contest and why we're doing it. And so now I think we'd like to take some questions. Should we start with some online?
Thanks, Oliver. Okay, so our first question tonight is from a user named Jan. And he says, I would be interested in hearing what inspired Somerville to set the goal to be a carbon neutral city by 2050. And what is the general support for this valuable goal within the city?
Well, that is a really good question. And setting the goal for carbon neutrality by 2050 really came from an exercise within the city a few years ago of looking at all the different systems that impact carbon emissions in the city and thinking, you know, where do we have the most leverage to make a difference? You know, if we're gonna start mapping out a way to reduce carbon emissions, what should we be looking for? And there are a lot of ambitious big cities that have the goal of 80% reduction of 1990 levels by 2050, and that's a great goal that we could have gone for. But Mayor Curtatone said, let's go all the way. Let's go to carbon neutrality, because ultimately that is what all cities have to do. And we look at this goal that is driving this competition and a lot of other plans and policies in the city, not as a necessarily the goal that must be achieved by 2050 for any particular reason only in Somerville. It's something that all communities in the region and the world should really be striving for. And we think that if we set a very high goal, a stretch goal, we will have to develop some approaches that are innovative and new, and we can lead by example, and hopefully lots of other folks around the country and the world will follow. So that's the reason for setting such a high goal, and we believe that there is a lot of support in Somerville for it, and we're excited to kick off a long-term planning process, which will involve lots of our local stakeholders who are already expressing a lot of support for it.
Here's a question that often I get asked when we run contests in collaboration with different organizations and entities is, what are some ideas that you're already kicking around? So what are things that you've already been thinking about that maybe are out of the box? Or what are some ideas that you're looking for or different sectors or different areas where you're particularly looking for different out of the box ideas?
That's a great question, and I'd say that some of the proposals we've already received have anticipated this, and they know some of the things that we're working on and that are really important to us. But I would say that Somerville is as we mentioned in the background material on the contest page, Somerville is historically a highly residential city, and primarily small multi-unit buildings make up the housing stock. And so, we will do a lot of analyses and projections to see what are the different pathways to get to carbon neutrality in 2050, but I think we're all going to know that it has to do in large part with our buildings and the homes that we live in. And so ways to do very effective energy efficiency and then making energy positive homes is really one of the most important things. So building technologies and the way that we regulate, incentivize, and promote new development to meet higher standards and retrofit our beautiful historical housing stock. That's one of the most important things. And we have done some work in those areas. So we've had a residential energy efficiency program, and that's also going to enter its second phase this year. We're looking at different alternatives for helping folks get solar onto their homes in Somerville. So building energy is very important. Yes, we've got an in-person question here, so I will try to repeat it so we make sure we record it.
How does the consortium of actors, the city of Somerville, MIT, and Greentown, handle issues of intellectual property for any kind of technical proposals that you might receive?
That's a really good question that I don't know that I have the full answer to, but I'll say what I can, and then maybe Lar can help us. So the question was, how does this contest address or deal with questions of intellectual property that might come up, because there could be some pretty fantastic ideas that come in. So I will say, to answer that question as I can, that we envision using the winning ideas as part of our climate change planning process. So we'll be pulling groups of residents and business owners and other stakeholders to focus on different topics, to come up with short-term to long-term strategies for a climate change plan. And what we want to do is take the winning ideas and say, hey, listen, this was vetted by some fantastic judges. It came from some people. What do you think about it? Is there a way that we could adapt it and develop it into our plan? We also have a prize, as I mentioned, where some folks from Greentown here will give some advice on perhaps commercializing or advancing your business if this idea is sort of a market-related idea. So there are some that's how we plan on interacting with some of the ideas, and perhaps Laura has some questions, has some answers that have come up in past contests.
Sure. So everything that's submitted onto the Climate CoLab platform is covered under a Creative Commons license. So if you're familiar, or if you're not familiar with Creative Commons, basically what that means is that it's open. It's something that can be used by other people. And the license that we use can be remixed and can be adapted, but with attribution. So if you have something that you want to keep as intellectual property, then I would recommend that you don't submit that onto the Climate CoLab platform. You might allude to it in your proposal, but don't list it specifically, don't give any graphs or drawings that you're very cautious and careful about. I want to retain those rights too. Does
that answer your question?
Great. Okay, we've got another question from, sure. Yeah, well, we've got one of our other fellows here, Megan Ackerman from Communications in the city of Somerville.
We're also getting some questions in on Reddit, so I thought you might be able to address a couple of these. One's a question, one's more of a comment, but I think it might be interesting. So the first question is the city only looking for easy solutions, or is it willing to make some non-monetary sacrifices in order to achieve this goal? It's easy to say let's become carbon neutral, but it's hard to say here and there we'll have to cut back on ways we've been living high on the energy hog.
That is a really good question, and it's almost like the theme for what we're doing here. And I think the answer is we are not just looking for easy solutions. In fact, we're looking primarily for the ones that aren't easy. So the one exception to that is there's some things we should obviously all be doing, and there are some clever ways to do that, and we'd love those answers. But what we're looking for through this contest and through our long-term climate change plan is to see what is it really going to take, and what are we going to have to do outside of our borders, and how are we going to have to radically change the way we do some things, and what do we get to keep because we don't want to compromise. But I'd say we really want to. We're not looking just for easy answers, and we want to chart a path that makes us look hard at questions such as, consumption, or, the way we generate energy in our entire region. Big things that Somerville's not going to be able to do alone, but this contest could really point us to some solutions that we can advocate for if we can't implement them entirely ourselves. Is there another question?
This one's actually a comment, but it raised a couple of questions for me, so I thought I would ask them. So the comment is, well, the commuter rail doesn't exactly run on solar power. So one of the questions I had, you sort of alluded to, but how do ideas that are a little bit outside the scope of Somerville's immediate influence fit into this contest? And then also, how are you going to be looking at things, like public transit, which is definitely a more environmentally friendly option that, we encourage people to use. But, looking at improving them or bringing them even more in line with the goals.
Another great question. Yeah, I think we will definitely, we would like to get responses that really, as I mentioned earlier, cover all aspects of urban life, and transportation and transit is a really important part of that. So while it's true that Somerville does not control the transit system in our city, we have a huge seat at the table, and we really want to hear ideas that we can champion outside of the city, be that with other governments or with other organizations, and really see if this is an idea that makes a lot of sense, and we can quantify some real benefits. We're looking for ideas that we can take on, and it's true the commuter rail does not yet run on solar power, but if you can show us how, we might go for it. Sure. Oh yeah, we have another audience question. And I will try to repeat it.
Hi, Hi, thank you. I'm Maureen from Somerville Climate Action, and I think this contest is great, and it's great that the goal is 2050, but it also feels like wishful thinking that we have until 2050 to make these kinds of changes. So is there the possibility that this can be scaled up much quicker? Are you thinking of that? Are you aware of the need that it really does need to happen way before 2050?
Yeah, that is such a good question. In case it didn't get picked up in the recording, the question is, okay, so the timeline is 2050 on the contest, but what about things before that? And yes, I think probably it should be carbon neutral by 2050 starting 20 years ago. But we can't do that, so no suggestions that are for a time machine, but we are definitely looking for things that we can start doing now. And in fact, some of the contests that we've already gotten are, great ideas that could turn into programs and policies to address current needs, such as energy efficiency or solar energy, things that folks are looking for now and that are, at some level, very technically feasible now. So that's a great question, and I'd like to add that we are certainly looking for proposals that have substantial carbon reduction impact from the get-go. And while we are looking for ideas that are innovative and might not be possible with current technologies, we'd love to see some that are possible now. Let's see, any more questions right now?
Any more questions from our audience members at the moment?
Sure.
I'm wondering if you could expand a bit on the idea of the emphasis on the local implementation and how global players then can contribute to that. How do you manage maybe ideas that are born out of a local knowledge that can then gain from contributions through the global audience?
Sure. Well, I'll take a stab at answering that, but then I'd also maybe ask Laura to answer that, because I'm sure she's seen some great local and global connections that have happened in other contests that would be great for us to see too. So the question was, how do we plan on sort of managing the interaction between CoLab members, the 34,000 members who are all over the globe, and then also folks here in Somerville, some local members and other just people who are looking at the contest. And what I would say is, we're so interested in the global perspective because folks just have a different way of thinking of things because of, culture, training, landscape, climate. It makes people come up with different ideas that perhaps aren't as easy for us to come to, but that would work very well. But we're also really interested in having a lot of people here in Somerville not only suggest proposals, ideas that are, from their own observations of and technical expertise here in the area, but also to look at some contests that perhaps come from other parts of the globe and say, that might not make a lot of sense because it snows here, and then that might help someone in another part of the world say, oh, you're right, okay, but that doesn't mean that this is a dead end. There's another idea here that I have. And that's what I personally would love to see about the interaction of the global community with our brilliant minds here in Somerville.
Yeah, I actually don't have too much to add because that was a great explanation of what happens and what we like to see happen. As I mentioned, that any proposal that's submitted onto the site can be seen by anybody. And there's actually an opportunity for people to actually collaborate. So, for example, if you were to submit a proposal and then someone from Denmark says, oh God, I've been working on this idea for like 15 years, invite me to collaborate on your proposal. So you can actually open up your work to him, and then you could work together on generating the ideas. And so we've seen other contests that we've run that have been locally focused, where people would submit things. Actually, I more saw this with people who were submitting things locally. And then, so for example, in this context, it would be getting something from Massachusetts or from Maine, so people who are submitting and knew about the area, and then getting feedback from people from around the world, saying, oh, have you checked out this resource? Or we're running a similar program in our country. So that kind of collaboration intelligence can be really, really wonderful. And it's interesting how the Climate CoLab does have this kind of interplay and this collaborative, competitive balance. But we actually find that it works like that. It works like a balance, because the people who are involved in the Climate CoLab, first and foremost, they want to make a difference. Actually, in our survey results, that's what they've said. They said they participate in the Climate CoLab because they want to make a difference. And then a couple options past that is, okay, well, you know, there's money and there's prize and there's all that kind of glory and stuff. But really what they want is they want to make a difference, and they also want their projects to succeed and their ideas to succeed. So we really are able to get this really passionate crowd and very intelligent crowd working together on some of these ideas, and really are supportive of each other, which I find to be very, very inspiring. You know, I read the comments. That's every comment I read that's posted on the platform, and all of them are, oh, this is so interesting, you gotta check this out, or I don't know about this idea, you know, we tried this and it totally didn't work, or I completely disagree with this, but maybe you can check this out. You know, so it's that kind of really passionate and collaborative activity does really happen on the site.
Yeah, I did actually want to answer another question that we've gotten from a few folks in person before, which is the issue of cost estimates and carbon reduction estimates, which is something we asked for in the contest proposal. And you know, there's a little bit of a conflict between a wacky, atypical idea and something that's very, you know, easy to, you know, quantify the cost. But we'd just like to say, you know, try to do your best and document your assumptions. So one of the prize categories that we have is, you know, the one that will, you know, take us farther toward carbon reductions. So there is something in it for trying to quantify that. But, you know, we know there's all sorts of different ways to do it, and things will change, especially if your idea relies on a technology that is perhaps not yet available. But if you sort of take a stab and say, you know, this is what I was assuming, this is what I think it could be, given what I know about Somerville, that is really helpful for us. And I think will be very valuable when we take the winning ideas and work with them in our community. People will really get a sense of, you know, what's at stake.
I can actually.
Sure. Oh, okay, sure.
So I can actually give a bit of a sneak peek of an initiative that we're going to be launching on the platform that I haven't told anybody publicly yet, really. So here you all get to know. So we're going to be soon launching a community that's going to be working with the Climate CoLab, and they are students at MIT and other universities from around the world, and some professionals as well. And they're known as the Impact Assessment Team. So they're actually people who have climate modeling expertise, who will be working with proposal authors on the site to help them develop the carbon impact and greenhouse gas impact of their proposal. So there'll be a date that will be to be determined. So if you're interested in that, then sign up on the site and you'll receive our newsletter and you'll get the exact date. But if you submit your proposal by that date and start at least some kind of estimate of the impact of your proposal, they will actually work with you and come up with a more detailed and justifiable impact for your proposal. So no matter what you're proposing, it could be, you know, in this contest certainly, or in any of our other contests, if you're interested in what that impact would be, of that work would be on climate change, we have a team that can help you figure that out. So those are the Impact Assessment Fellows. So coming very soon to a Climate CoLab near you.
This one is from Twitter. There was actually someone who saw some of the tweets about it, asked for more info, so maybe we'll be making a proposal. But he also asked about things that we're already looking at, especially green rooftops on some of our larger buildings. So I don't know if you could speak a little bit more to some of that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and maybe it's something, you know, we are getting some questions that we'll follow up and put some more useful information on the references page, but we'd love to see more on green roofs. We have a few in Somerville, but I'd say that it's something that to my knowledge, has come up in a lot of our previous planning, the summer vision process. There's a lot of interest in greening the city. We're a very dense city with not that much open space, and so looking at different ways to, sort of clever ways to get around that by looking at green roofs is definitely something that's a planning priority. But we'd love to see a case for how it can really make some impacts in carbon emissions, and we'd love to see some, innovative ways of thinking about how it can fit our building stock. We do have a lot of former industrial buildings, and as I mentioned, we have a lot of, 2 to 4 family residential. So that's what we're working with, and those smaller buildings aren't always what you think of as the ones that can have a big impact on through green roofs, but maybe there's something we're missing, so we'd love to see that. Okay. I wonder if we've reached the end of our questions for tonight. I think we have, but we will be, the fellows and I will be answering more questions as they come in. So please, post questions on the discussion page. Of course, all the other ways we were taking questions tonight, we'll continue to take questions throughout the course of the contest. And even if you don't have an idea, I encourage you to help make the other ideas work for Somerville by commenting. Thanks very much.